It's story time, gals, and this is all about your story. Welcome to Sobriety Snippets for Women Over 40, where we elevate our mindset and trade hangovers for higher consciousness, one powerful snippet at a time. That's a mouthful. I'm Becca Jacobson, and I'm really glad you're here on this Friday in March as we creep towards spring. Matter of fact, hold on a minute here, kids. Today is the first day of spring. Oh my goodness, that's worth celebrating, isn't it? I love it. It was already a great day, and now it's even better. Not that we want to let the weather decide how we feel, right? Well, we try. Gals, if you're new here, welcome to Snippet Land. This is where we keep the home fires burning for women over 40 who are struggling with alcohol. And on Fridays right now, we are doing a new series called the Radical Reinvention Series. Started last Friday. And in this series, I'm sharing some of my own stories, but the reason I'm doing it is to really drive home to you the significance of your stories. I'm not talking here about writing your autobiography and chronologically recording your life story. I'm talking here about pinpointing the stories from your past that have a high emotional charge, that easily come to mind, that just keep popping up. You don't look for them. You don't sit down and think, now let's see what happened in my past. These are the stories that they're there. You don't have to try. That means they are affecting you even more than the ones you're not aware of. So the truth is, all of our past, even the situations that have been buried in the subconscious, they've gone underground, we're unaware of them. They are definitely affecting our emotional growth today and the way we approach our world. But the ones that are right there, easily accessible, that's like low-hanging fruit. So we go there first. We start there and clean up those pieces. And if you've been listening, that's what I did. Several years ago, I was writing those stories, just the ones that were easily accessible, and ended up turning them into a memoir. I'm not reading my book here on the show, but I am sharing some of those stories. Last Friday was the first one. It was pretty edgy. It was a pretty significant moment in my life. And today we're going back 20 years previous to that story. As I said, we don't need to do this chronologically. And so today's story is to help us see how the simplest things can affect us so, so deeply. Enjoy. The Valium years. And this one shit herself, my mom, pointing at me, exclaimed so loud that the entire block could hear. The shame and humiliation I felt in that moment are the only reason I remember this episode so clearly, because the truth is, I really can't remember much from growing up. My sister, when we were adults, used to shake her head in amazement when she would reference moments from our childhood that I had no memory of. She would stare at me in awe and ask, "How can you not remember that?" I don't know, but I do know that my childhood consists of about 20 tiny little moments, little vignettes, all of them centered around my single mom and a highly emotional moment in time. And this was one of those moments. I was 6 or 7. It was the early 1970s, and we were locked out of the house. My sister, my little brother, and me, and a babysitter who I don't remember at all. I think this was the only time she looked after us. We arrived home after a beautiful afternoon at the park, and she discovered she had left the keys in the house. We lived on a suburban street like a million others with houses that had lawns and backyards. Our backyard ran right up against an apple orchard. The only thing we could do was wait for my mom to get home from work. And this would have been fine, except I had to go to the bathroom. Really bad. I barely knew this babysitter, and I knew she couldn't do anything anyway, so I sat on the curb, held my breath, and tried not to move. It was agony, and as the moments ticked by, it got harder and harder until I couldn't hold it any longer, and then I was sitting on the curb in my own mess, hoping and praying that no one would come close enough to notice. I just sat there in the deepest shame, trying to figure out how I was going to get into the house and cleaned up with no one noticing. I tried to shift my body in such a way as to keep myself from the mess in my pants. I was getting cold. I could smell myself. I wanted to die. I felt so dirty. The only thing that could make this worse was if anyone else knew about it. After what felt like hours, my mom's dark green station wagon turned the corner at the end of the street, and while I was relieved to know we would soon be in the house, I still hadn't figured out how I was going to get in there, into my room for clean clothes, then into the bathroom to clean myself, and all of this without anyone noticing. But it turned out all of those concerns were moot. Before we could get into the house, we had to face Mom's wrath. She was furious when the babysitter told her why we were all loitering outside the house, why her tea wasn't made, why supper and our homework hadn't been started, why things weren't the way she expected them to be, why plans had gone awry, why did she have to arrive home to chaos after a hard day at work. I sat in my spot, trying to be invisible as she ranted and raved at the top of her lungs, making sure several neighbors came out to see what was going on. My brother and sisters stood with their heads down, also trying to be invisible. The babysitter was about 13, and tears poured down her cheeks as my mom made sure she knew how her irresponsibility had destroyed everything. As she yelled and pointed at the babysitter, she paced up and down the lawn and got close enough to me to end her diatribe with, "And this one shit her pants." I was a filthy little girl. Okay, gals. I mean, really, what is significant about that story? Well, I'm sure we can all see that I was humiliated, yes. But what long-term effect did that story have on me? But more importantly, why would it not go away? I could not remember anything from that time of my life. As I said in the story, I don't really remember my childhood. But that moment in time is clear, like I could see it happening like it happened yesterday. Why? Of course, because of the emotion attached to it. And instead of ever looking at that story or looking at different aspects of that story, or more importantly, helping that little girl to realize she wasn't dirty, until I did that, that story and other incidents like it left me with self-esteem that was so low, I actually walked through life believing I was a dirty girl. Now, I didn't think those words. I didn't walk around going, I'm a dirty girl. But when I see some of my actions that I would take later in life, and when these things all tie together with the events that would happen, like, for example, the things we talked about last week, these all tie together to create a self-image that I carried that was anything but healthy. Without being able to verbalize it, I behaved in ways that brought back to me less than the best. When we have experiences like these, it affects our self-image, and that is what creates our lives. The way we see ourselves is what we get back in life, the way we feel about ourselves, and it's not necessarily conscious. The point of this story, gals, is that when I was able to look at it and quietly give that little girl the comfort that she needed that day and never got, which is exactly what I did, the adult me, the grown-up Becca, can go back in imagination or in writing and sit beside her on that curb and pick her up, take her into the house, clean her up, give her a cup of hot chocolate, tell her she's okay. My goodness, it could have happened to anybody. It wasn't your fault. You're not dirty. That type of reparenting can literally mend our self-concept. And yet, if we leave things like this alone, we don't even know that they're affecting the way we're behaving today. And that creates an anxiety, a tension that we can't really name. And all of these things help us to continue drinking. When we're emotionally uncomfortable, alcohol eases the pain. It does its job. It does the job well. That's why we use it. Of course, you can just quit drinking. But if you decide instead to take an emotional journey, you can free yourself from alcohol and never have to think about it again. You can get to a peace and contentment inside that only alcohol can bring right now. It's this type of work that you want to be doing. So today's reflection, which you will find by going to the show notes and downloading the Radical Reinvention Guide, which I put in there, along with it, you're going to get all my other guides because they're all in a library together. And I'm giving you a new journal prompt every Friday right now. Today's prompt is to help you see something from your past that may be affecting your self-image. So go to the show notes, download the guide, follow along, and start reinventing your own past. Thanks for popping in. Be sure to come back next time so I can keep your head on straight. Sending you buckets of love.